Oh my god, I didn't turn the pump on. Look at all the condensation here. Look at all that condensation. What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be taking a look at the infamous thermoelectric water-cooled Steam Deck that has pretty much blown up on Reddit. And we're going to get into why I built it, then we're going to get to how I built it. But before I get into all of that, I want to quickly address Reddit and say thank you to everyone that appreciates the project, like the project, and even the people that dislike the project for a multitude of reasons, whether it's ugly, impractical, lack of portability. All of the above is fair. It's fair, except for a certain group of people, and which is surprisingly like 40% of the comments on Reddit. People that dismiss a project because they don't understand it or understand any type of reasoning behind it, and not dismissing it for like a solid reason like looks alone. It's fair dismissive of a project. It's ugly, I don't like it. That is fair, and I accept that as fair. But if you say I don't like it because I don't understand it, you're kind of a piece of shit, and you're kind of closed-minded. Actually, you're very closed-minded, and I'm sure this is not the only subject that you're closed-minded on. And I think that's the problem with the world today, is people dismissing things because they don't understand it. Rather than dismiss something because you don't understand it, you should probably ask a question: why does this exist? And then conclude a opinion on it after the fact, not just a blind dismissive I don't understand it, so I don't like it. You're kind of a closed-minded piece of shit, and you know who you are. Don't be like that. That's the problem with the world today. You can hate something for not liking a part of it or a whole thing, but hating it because you don't understand it, I can't drive this home enough, is not a good way to look at life. So don't be like that. Don't be like that. But other than that, let's get into the video. So let's start off with why I built this thing. And it was purely on the basis of that I thought it would be fun and interesting project. The construction of the thermoelectric water cooler is fairly simple. Linus actually did this about 3 years ago. It's just basically a Peltier attached to a AMD Wraith cooler that is attached to a water block, and that water block is attached to, which was the most difficult part, the custom water pump reservoir of my design. And then that's attached to another water block that is attached to the Steam Deck, and it's held down with 2 M4 screws that are JB welded to the back of the Steam Deck. And also we have the vent mod for extra cooling. To power this behemoth, we have 2 different plugs and a USB adapter, totaling just under 50 watts total to cool a 15-watt device. The thermoelectric water cooler's consumption is more than double what the Steam Deck consumes, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. And it's super impractical. Obviously, you need 3 different separate power connectors to just run the damn thing. But you cannot deny that it runs cool. You saw the previous video, it runs cool. It was almost 20 degrees cooler than the OLED, and I would guess, I haven't tested it because I don't have a stock LCD Steam Deck, it would be close to 25 degrees cooler than a stock LCD Steam Deck. You okay, bud? Because the LCD Steam Deck can stay cool for a lot longer, we can overclock the living crap out of it. We have the LCD up top, OLED bottom right, and they're both running Cyberpunk, except the LCD Steam Deck has a 24w TDP, 2000 on the GPU, and 3800 on the CPU, which is causing it to heat up quite a bit. But as you'll notice, the frame rate is slightly higher by 2 frames versus the OLED. The gains are super minimal and definitely not worth it if you ask me, but there are certain titles that will benefit from a higher TDP and overclocked. This is Helldivers 2 in the Steam Deck OLED, and we are playing at 800p Steam Deck settings, and you can see that it's handling 30 frames in hard mode pretty well, but you do notice the frames drop quite a bit. The frame graph is very chaotic, as you can see here right before I die, and the frames drop quite a bit, often below 30, which gives you a pretty poor playing experience. In Helldivers 2, it's definitely still playable, but with the LCD Steam Deck, with the overclocks, you will notice that you do get slightly better frame rate, but what you'll notice the most is the frame drops are going to be very minimal in comparison to the OLED due to the increased TDP. That CPU is now pushing 15 and up watts, which was holding back the Steam Deck in Helldivers 2. And now with that extra headroom, we can run around well above 30 frames. We do still see dips into the 20s, but we're not hitting the mid 20s, low 20s as often as we were in the OLED. And that's all just because the CPU has more power to it, and we don't need to borrow so much energy from the GPU, which gives you a very good experience playing Helldivers 2 on the Steam Deck. I'm not saying that the OLED was a bad experience, but because of that limitation on the CPU, you do see frame rates drop more often. As you can see here, we're in the 40s when we're not in combat, and these are the exact same settings. But when we do get into combat, we do drop sometimes into the mid 20s. But normally we will stay in that 30 range. Also, you'll notice in the frame graph is a lot smoother than it was in the OLED just because of that extra horsepower. So this is definitely a game that takes advantage of the overclock, which takes advantage of the thermoelectric cooler. And that is a thermoelectric water-cooled LCD Steam Deck, overclocked to a 24w TDP, 3800 on the CPU and 2000 on the GPU. It is very minimal gains considering how much heat we are pushing into the system, marginal at best. Definitely only a few games will benefit from overclock like this, but because of the thermoelectric cooler, it runs really cool, pun intended. Definitely not a practical system, definitely no longer portable, but if it's a stationary system, I don't see why not doing this to your own Steam Deck, or maybe just cutting a hole, adding a fan, and then overclocking it. Because from my experience, that's all you need. Hole, fan, heatsink maybe, and there you go. You could cool a 20w TDP, no problem staying below 80 degrees. But that's just my opinion. Guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them in the comments below. Other than that, I'll catch you on the next one.